You're listening to Hello Moxie with Nicole Donnelly. In each episode, we honor the unbreakable thread that connects the fierce women who came before us to modern-day pioneers carving their own paths. We'll share stories of unforgettable heroines, celebrate their courage, and bring to light the lasting impact they've had across generations. Get inspired by the stories of those who embody true Moxie and pave the way for others to follow. Hello Moxie is sponsored by DMG Digital, a woman-owned marketing consultancy dedicated to helping B2B companies and e-commerce brands create exceptional customer experiences.
Welcome to Hello Moxie. In today's episode, I am joined by Nicole Hayden. Nicole is the director of marketing at Triton Metal Products, a metal fabrication company based out of Hamilton, Indiana. She and her husband also own a winery, and she's the former founder of Creative Cat, a marketing agency she sold in 2023. Nicole is passionate about guiding organizations and people to create a better world. She loves understanding human behavior so we can truly connect to each other and create positive change, not just in ourselves, but also in our organizations. And I have been dying to have Nicole on the show. We met each other at Mark Schaefer's Uprising Marketing Retreat in, oh my gosh, can you believe it's been almost 6 months ago now? Oh my gosh, last spring.
Yep.
And I don't know, just the fact that we're both named Nicole is just one of many like crazy,
truly
strange, like psychic connections. Like as we met at the conference and we started talking, it was like we were living parallel lives in some ways. It was so crazy cool.
Yeah, it really was.
I felt like I found my like twin soulmate.
I know. Yep.
So
we're stuck. We're stuck with each other. I mean, we didn't have a choice.
Yeah. And I just felt like the minute I met you, Nicole, it was just so natural and easy to connect with you. And I think that's something that is really special about you that I've noticed is you really do have a gift for finding a way to connect with the people around you. And so I think that's super cool. It's clear you're passionate about it, but it shows up in the way that you engage with people in the world. So it's pretty cool.
Thank you. Luckily, what I have to discuss today, I think gets to the core of how I've developed that. So it is something that didn't always come naturally. I would say it was there, right? Because I am living it, embodying it now, but I pinned down the root of that cultivating that, on the point of the understanding human behavior, the human condition so that we can connect, that creating that space where people feel comfortable is a really big piece of that.
Yeah, that's safety. Like if you feel truly safe with someone to open up.
Safety is the word, Nicole. You found the word. That's my theme today, safety.
Yeah. And I remember when I first met you, I felt so safe. It was it was like, I can just share with you and you were just going to be there and listen. And I needed that at that time. I remember, I think we were at the barbecue dinner and I just unloaded on you. And you were like totally there for it. Afterwards, I was like, I think I might have overshared a little bit, but you just saw me, Nicole. You saw me in that moment when I needed to be seen.
That word does not exist in my vocabulary. It really doesn't. If people felt safe or compelled to say something, then I'm happy that I was the space where that flew out of their mouth. You know what I mean? So
that's what I love about you. So what's that journey been like for you to kind of get to that point where you feel like you're really able to create kind of that safe place for people and be able to truly connect? I'd love to learn more about.
Yeah. So like all great growth journeys is a story of adversity and trials and even trauma, right? So I describe my childhood as pretty tumultuous. Yeah. That word is a fumbler for me. Anyway, we had a lot of chaos in our family. My mom was a great mom. Well, she still is. We have a great relationship. She was as good as a mom as she could be at that time because of so much chaos. I was a sad kid because of what's the tragic event that happened when I was 6. My brother was in a drowning accident at a public place. And when they retrieved him, he was pronounced dead. And there's people everywhere around. I remember vividly like being picked up by a strange woman as I'm like screaming and crying, like, you know, seeing that as a 6-year-old, like that's like your world's never the same, you know? And on the point of safety, like that was where I lost the feeling of safety. And I did not find safety within myself until probably the last handful of years. Yeah, so my early childhood through teen years and early 20s were painful for sure. All I knew was I didn't want to live with it forever. And so the best decision I ever made was starting to get into personal development. I just would consume any personal development book that I could get my hands on. And it really never stopped. I just kept exploring, right? Trying to understand my own human condition so that I could get to just a peaceful state and get that chaos out of my body and that fear. So that's the summarized version there.
My gosh, I could not imagine as a 6-year-old what that experience must have been like and just how trapped you probably felt in that experience for so many years and with the emotions that you felt at that time and having to process through all of them, right? Like,
yeah. And, you know, like, of course it was a storm too of other things like abusive father, not to me, but to my mom, physically and emotionally, poverty, and just, I think seeing my mom. So there are ways where I see now that as a kid, I was lonely because, you know, you really only have the one parent and that parent is so overwhelmed with like what life has given her. And so that was that lonely piece of not being able to have as much as my mom as we need as a child. But the really positive element of it was seeing my mom move through it and grow through it and continually build us a better life to the point now where she owns a successful business. She's built an amazing life for herself. And so, you know, I got that in return. You know, that was kind of the way I see it. It's like that could have been more, but I got this in its absence.
Nicole, I swear you and I are like, it's just,
are we stacking up more?
We're stacking up more. I am literally going on Sunday to a public speaking class. And the topic of my talk is how to speak up and how speaking up is what breaks generational abuse. And even saying it right now, I'm nervous to go and give that speech and practice it. But while my experience was different than yours, very similar. I had a dad who was abusive too, to my mom and to us. And it's one of those things that I didn't really fully come to terms with until, in the last few years, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, and
it's one of those things that can feel very, very isolating, and like for me at least, is a very isolating and lonely experience to go through that and have to deal with the shame that you constantly have to fight against. The shame of, like, for me, it's like the feeling of badness. Like, I call it the rotten apple core. Like this feeling of like, I'm a rotten apple core and I've got to prove all the time that I'm good enough. Mm-hmm. And I'm like so tired of doing that.
Was there a moment for you where you realized it was playing out in your actions, or was it something like that was always kind of like you saw it there and just finally started to approach it in a productive way?
Yeah. Sadly and strangely enough, it really started when my dad passed away. It wasn't until my dad passed away that kind of like the curtain was lifted, if you will, on like years and decades of manipulation, to be fully frank. So that was like the first part of it. It was like, whoa, what just happened there? Yeah. And then I think what happened for me is I just had gotten to a point where I was so burnt out and burnout because I'm a workaholic. That has been my way of coping with it.
Yeah,
is through working, and that was my addiction. I was totally addicted to work, and I still have to fight that addiction, to be honest. But I had gotten to a point where I was so burnt out, and there were some relationships in my life that I realized I was choosing people that were a lot like my father. And it was a moment where I woke up one day, and what shifted for me was I had been practicing for 2 years. 2 years, I had been practicing just being with myself outside, sitting in my hammock every day for at least 15 minutes. And I would just sit there and pay attention to my sensations of my body, what my thoughts were. And it was like literally like my me time. Mm-hmm. And I did that consistently for 2 years. And I realized looking back, I'm like, that was what helped me really know what my inner voice was, what I wanted, when I was safe, when I wasn't safe. It was like I was able to really tune into my intuition by doing that and spending that time with myself. Because for me, like reading the self-help books is almost more feeling like, oh, I got to prove, I've got to do, you know?
Oh yeah.
But like the getting and just sitting there and just being was like me practicing, like, it's okay. I don't have to do anything and I can still be okay.
I love that so much because knowing now, looking back now, that journey of mine through the self-help books was really driven from, I would say, what you're calling the bad apple core. Like something's wrong with me and I need someone else to tell me how to fix me. Where I just listened to a podcast talking on this, and it was tied to childhood trauma. Our body, we kind of have it flipped where it's like we think our mind is controlling how our body feels, but really like the body is storing. So like that's why, tuning into how your body feels really drives like what's happening up here. I might be butchering that a little bit, but really the concept is like feel your body, feel into your body, and then you can kind of work your way up. So I would say to 20-year-old me, Nicole, hey, you should talk to Nicole Donnelly about her approach, because
I'd say that to my 20-year-old self too, honest. Like I say that to myself 2 years ago. I say it to myself today, every day.
Yeah. Yeah. So on the note of self-help books, I really don't do too much of it now. I posted about this on LinkedIn when I was actually active on LinkedIn, but it was the realization that those books were coming from a place of lack in myself. Like I didn't have the answers, so I needed to consume all these other voices to tell me. And so I've really gotten away from that. And
what have you noticed since you've done that?
I'm more creative, when you're not expecting other people to tell you what to do, the experts, right? It just opens up more space to dream and like problem solve creatively, and it's hard at first, but eventually you get to a point where like for instance, I'm redoing the company's employee evals because we want them to be driven from like a core value place. So initially it's like, I'm not HR. I don't know how the F to do these. I don't know if I can curse in this podcast.
You can do it.
I'm pretty liberal with them sometimes, but So like, the more you just look at yourself as the expert that can figure things out, then you get those assignments or projects and you don't have as much freeze time, and it's like you are creatively trying to map it out and figure it out and not just trying to fit yourself into someone else's framework.
Yeah, I think you're right on there. I found that a lot of times people, and myself too, if it's something that like if you're moving into a new industry or you're doing working with a new client, or it's a new project that you've never done before or anything like that, a lot of times you can give yourself a hard time like, oh my gosh, I don't have experience in this industry. But sometimes, from my experience, I found that's actually can be a beautiful thing because you see things from a completely different perspective than anyone else who has 15, 20 years of experience. And so you can look at the problem that's happening and be able to see it with kind of like this new vantage point that helps bring in, like you, in your case, some new creativity to it, like you've been able to do. Like you can bring all of your, as marketers, so much of what we do is really like understanding people and what they need and what they want.
I think understanding people and questioning the way things are done, right? It's like unique is one of the core words that you use to describe marketing. So it's like, to be a good marketer, I mean, it really calls for that, like that build a new system around this exact situation and the people involved. Like it's never the same exact situation and people. So yeah, I think it's been a really positive thing for me being better at that field.
Yeah, it sounds like what you've been able to do is really learn to how to work. Well, you've developed really strong leadership, or you're developing really strong leadership skills, but also how to work across departments to make change happen. And I think in order to truly be an exceptional marketer, you have to know how to do that really well. You have to be able to know how to communicate with other teams cross-functionally and get them on board the train.
I mean, the buy-in, I think that's really like, we should schedule another call, another recording a year from now, because that's where I'm at right now. Like my first challenge is buy-in, because I do work with people who are old school manufacturing mentality. And so I just look like a fluffy unicorn in there that, like, they might find just noise. A certain one of them loves the word noise. And I like this guy, but again, it's like, we're on the same team and I'm trying to make change. So you have to figure out how to work with each, meet them where they're at, right? I can't force it onto anyone. So you have to meet them where they're at, even if you're cursing them, like sometimes I do, to, not force it, but like, create this collaboration and hopefully, bring it together in a way that reflects all involved, not just you. Like it becomes better, right? But that it's overcoming that. That's where I'm currently at. So
I have so been there. What have you found, Nicole? I feel like I'm there all the time. I'm being honest. Like I was like that when I worked in-house for a manufacturing company, and it was just such a struggle to get the engineers to understand what we do. And sometimes the mansplaining was just egregious. I'll never forget one time I was on a call with an engineer and he's like, we need to be ranking on the first page of Google for these keywords. And he was like mansplaining to me my job. And I was like, no, dude, no, I know what I'm doing here. Like,
I can feel like boiling in my body. And I'm just like, gosh, talk about like testing your like, your control and just emotions.
Yeah. Especially when I was trying to talk to him about how we needed to be developing content so that we can do, and he's like, we need to rank on. How do you think we're going to do that, dude? Like, Anyway, this was like 6 years ago or something. But so I would love to know, I don't know if you experienced this, but I find that often people have underestimated me in my career. I've often been underestimated. And it used to really bother me. It used to really get under my skin. And now I almost welcome it because I'm just like, I'm just going to show you. So just wait and see. You keep underestimating me and you just wait because,
girls. Okay, that's another stack on our soul ties, because you can be in that state from like a non-ego trip state. I think
you'll have to tell me more, because I feel like I got to be honest. Sometimes it is ego for me. I'm going to be real. Sometimes there's this ego in me that's like, I'm going to show you. So tell me more. How do you do it from a non-ego state, Nicole?
Well, now that I say it out loud, I'm like, I should probably sit with that too and really look at it. I know sometimes I'm excited to see that happen. So it's like less of I'm going to show you. And it's more like, that's going to be cool because I know it's going to happen. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. You've got like this inner confidence.
Yeah. And I'm such a visualizer. So I can already like see what I'm doing now, like how it's like breadcrumbing to that moment. And so when I have just yesterday with speaking to the company and then dealing with some like negative criticism from the same guy that loves the word noise, I'm like, so I like I could not really enjoy the evening last night because I was just like trying to figure out the best way to get through this. Because when someone feels like that about you and they are high in the company, that can spread, right? Like their perspectives can spread. And so I wanted to handle it in a way that I could get in front of it in a calm and the word productive, I'm so sick of it, but I guess productive way where it's not just like me versus you, but a proactive, like I want to improve too. Your voice matters. So anyway, I handled it all, I think, in a way that I'm proud, in a way that's clean, in a way that brings the team together, not divides. And that's one of those breadcrumb moments where I'm like, okay, I just ate my next breadcrumb that is connected to this vision I have where I'm going to, rock their world and they don't even know it, or get the credibility, that's kind of what we're saying here. It's like, if they underestimate you, then you don't have that credibility yet. And that's, to me, that's like, I got to get that.
I know we're going on another topic, but creating this podcast has been, we'll talk about that later, but creating this podcast has been just a brutal journey of like trying to just be comfortable being seen. Like I've never leaned into my personal brand in this way. Like there's like there's a website and it has pictures of me on it. And I'm like, I'm not used to being seen like this. Do you know what I mean? Like when you grow up in an abusive household, it's not safe for you to be seen. And so I know we're going on another topic, but like this whole idea of me having to put myself out there like that and be seen by the world and potentially judged on that, it terrifies me. I have like, it's scary. So I appreciate you saying that. I have to give all the kudos to Paola Santana, who is our video editor on our team. And she is just one of those people that I wish, loyal to the core, incredibly, incredibly committed to doing exceptional work, and very, very creative, very detail oriented. Like, anyway, I love her. But anyway, thank you. I'm going to pass that on to her. She'll hear it when she hears the podcast. Paola Santana. She does great work.
Shower her with all of the sincere compliments because it looks great.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, when you were talking about like the culture, what you're experiencing, it's incredible to me how common it is, sadly. I've worked in situations like that as an employee time and time again. I've had clients who have that same, it's like, it's so much more common for this situation, the culture, to have those kinds of things than not. And it made me think, as you were talking about like that, there's this amazing book. You, Nicole, you would love it. You might have already read it. It's by Pat Lencioni.
I'm familiar with him.
Yeah. And it's called The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team.
Yeah.
And everything you're saying just sounds so much like this. So the first one is lack of trust. If you don't have lack of trust, you can't, like, that is like ground zero. And then the second one is fear of conflict. The third one is lack of commitment, and then avoidance of accountability, and then results. And like everything you were describing to me, just like there's no trust, because it sounds like everybody's like in self-preservation mode. They're just trying to protect themselves, and they're afraid of conflict. So they just keep it to themselves, or they do the side channel thing.
Yep.
Because they don't want to bring it out in the open and just say it transparently.
The side channel is the safe space.
Yeah. And oh my goodness, heaven forbid you should share constructive feedback in a meeting and say what's actually happening in the company. That's conflict. And so the fact that someone would come back and say, well, we need to be more positive, says to me, like, you're afraid of the conflict. You're afraid of facing the reality of what we're dealing with right here.
Yeah. And it's like, people see it. They see it. So covering it up with glitter, covering up the shit with glitter, you still smell it. So.
Yeah. And isn't it amazing to think, like, what I think is really beautiful about your leadership approach is there's a lot of people that would just try to put lipstick on a pig, like they say, right? You're just going to put lipstick on the pig. And, you know, you're in marketing, and I think it shows incredible leadership on your end to say, like, this is much bigger than marketing, and it's foundational to anything that this company does. It's a foundational to our customer experience. If our employee experience is poor, it's going to bleed out everywhere else.
Yeah.
And I think the fact that you see that and have the vision for that and understand, like, your role in marketing, like, there's a much more important leadership task at hand to be able to address those things than just, okay, what are we going to do for our social media campaign for the next 6 months? And what email campaigns are we going to run? Like,
what lipstick are we putting on?
Yeah, exactly. Like, you're not going to get
putting on our little piggy.
It's like, you're not going to get there.
Yeah. And for me, it's just like, it kind of comes back to the credibility. And like, I have such I think a pretty healthy craving of success that it's like, whatever I have plans to do, they will not be successful if this is here. Flat out. Like, I can't have that success, that sweet success, if this is here. So I got to clean up the mess, you know, or at least like be a part of the early, you know, group that's like driving that. So
you're doing the hard work of change management, you know, like anytime you want to do any sort of transformation within an organization, it takes so much people change management, you know.
Yeah.
You could implement whatever technology you want, but it's not going to stick unless you have the people who are all on board.
Yep. The people with the mindsets, right? And it's like, when I got hired, I mean, I knew that. The CEO knew that. Our first battle is the mindset. I see where we're aligned on that. I also see where my skill sets and strengths are so needed there next, like knowing his now. And so he needs my help. Like, they need my help with this mindset adoption. And for me, it's like, yeah, I'm still marketing, like, because this marketing can't be successful with this. But it's there's a example in the story of the woman I'll share today that I was so thrilled. I like didn't know that how what I'm going through would connect to this woman, and you'll see why when I share. And then as I'm reading it, I'm like, oh my God, this was like meant to be. So I know I don't even remember the point I was just making, but yeah, just like seeing where your strengths like fill a gap.
And I would say, like, continue to lean into that. Like, I can't tell you how many times I felt like a fish out of water in certain situations where I was just like, felt like a unicorn. You know, like you mentioned earlier in the episode, you're like, I feel like this guy thinks I'm the fluffy unicorn. I would say lean into that fluffy unicorn.
Oh, I am. Yeah. It's what I have, you know. I have soft skills. I bring a safe space for people. I know how to connect with people. Like my marketing skill set is not number one priority. So it's like, that's what I have to give right now. And I know that it can get us where we want to. And it's okay if I'm looked at as the fluffy unicorn for a while, whatever. Gives me, you know, more wiggle room when I want to show up in a goofy mood or a weird mood or, you know, I'm doing weird dance moves. Like, I just feel like it gives me like freedom to just be fucking weird. So whatever.
I got to see these weird dance moves. Let's get a little sneak preview. Are you like Elaine from Seinfeld? Do you remember her like funny dance? Oh my gosh, look at you. Yeah.
I mean, I'm in a chair, so they can get really crazy. But yeah, I just see it as the silver lining. All right, if I'm the weirdo around here, then sounds like fun.
Your crazy dance is much better than mine. See, I have a 14-year-old now, and so I'm on a mission to embarrass her as much as humanly possible. I never thought I'd see this day, but I literally take pleasure in how can I embarrass her. So like usually like, you know, if she's in the room and I'm in a silly mood.
So easily too.
Oh, it's the best. It's like, and I'm like that parent that I never thought I would be, that just is like, my goal is what can I do to embarrass her? So I'll just do like my really like annoying, you know, 90s dance when she's with her friends and she's like, Mom, you're so weird.
She's 15.
She's 14.
Yeah. So man, that is the age. My nephews are 15. And that is the age where just like the word to describe their lens is just like lame. Everything is lame. God.
So true.
So glad you're, you know, taking a similar page out of my same book and just like, all right, well, I guess we'll just have fun with it.
Yeah, exactly.
This is my situation then.
Well, tell me more about this woman in history that you admire, and tell me, like, I want to know about her. I want to know what you love about her and how she's inspired you. Is she on a parallel track with you?
She is like incredibly badass.
Yeah.
So brave, and in a situation I will likely never be in my life, which is war. Her name is Nancy Wake. Have you heard of her?
I have not. No.
There's an incredible movie about her that it was really what started it all for me. And when you shared, you know, it's about a woman in history, I was like, it was Nancy Wake. She was one of the most successful spies of World War II. She was a French resistance member and a British spy who was so effective at hiding. Sorry, I have a dog. She's so effective at hiding refugees and sabotaging dog.
I think he loves her too. I think that's what he's saying.
No, he loves the U-Haul truck that just pulled up. Not ours. I was reading that because
it's okay. My husband's pinging me about pumpkin bread being done because I baked some pumpkin bread, and he's like texting me. He's like, "The pumpkin bread smells good, honey." So I'm with you. It's all good. So anyway, tell me about Nancy Wake. I want to know.
So she was one of the most decorated spies of World War II, a female, and on top of that, she was beautiful. She was girly and feminine and charming and rebellious. And she just knew herself and held on to herself. And that is from what my takeaways is this is someone, I mean, we're talking early 30s. So, right. We think women, you know, aren't accepted as an equal contribution now. That's in the workplace too. It's like, this is wartime, 1930s. So she just kept moving through all of, you know, the resistance to her being a female and playing this role, and held on to herself. There's an incredible story where they were running from a bomber airplane. I know there's a technical term for that, Germans, and they're like barely dodging these bullets flying at them. They're in a car and they get to a point where they know they have to ditch the car and go into a trench. So they ditched the car and they're running, and she stops and sprints back to the car, grabs a package, runs back to her fellow resistance member, and they jump in the ditch, and he's thinking she had to get papers of some sort, like something obviously critical to their mission. And it was her cosmetic case. Like it was her makeup and like her face creams. And they just like lost it laughing while literally, because the car like blew up like seconds later. And they just are dying laughing in this trench with freaking bullets all around them. And it's just like, she just like, she was that role, like a resistance fighter and a spy, but she just was still herself. And like that moment to me was just so comical, because I couldn't picture myself in that, right? Like you can, I'm sure, like our feminineness that men don't understand.
Yeah. And I think sometimes, don't you find like, I find I have a complicated relationship with my femininity, to be honest, in the workplace.
Yeah. In what ways?
And so when I hear you say that about her, that she just unabashedly owned that about herself, I think is beautiful. I think I have like this inner battle about it in the sense that I love leaning into that feminine. Like I love to, wear makeup and do my hair nice and wear a beautiful dress. And, I love all of that, right? I love all of that. But then there's this other side to it where I'm like, is it all about my looks? Am I just, I want people to take me seriously. I want them to see me as intelligent and, and not just someone who looks good. So I have like this inner battle about it, and I think what I loved you sharing there is that she just owned that about herself, and she didn't apologize for it. And she's like, I can be kick-ass and brilliant and get shit done, and I can look beautiful doing it, and I think that's really cool.
Yeah. And I think it just like, because looking good felt good to her, she performed better. I can't do it now because I live 50 minutes away from work. But when I had the agency, I was 7 minutes away from my house and office. And if I got to work and like got in an hour or two and like something about my outfit I hated, Nicole, I would drive home and change clothes.
Wow.
It felt so silly, right?
No, you were channeling Nancy Wake.
Like Nancy Wake sprinting back to her a car that's about to blow up. But like I knew that if I felt good in what I was wearing, then like I had a pep in my step, and like, so it's like I connect with that so much. Like then it becomes more about feeling good than like society's standard of beauty. Like that's when I don't feel good about it.
That is such a really important way to look at it, is how you express yourself through how you dress and how your makeup and your hair. It's an expression of who you are as a person and who you want to be. It's a reflection of that inside of you,
Yeah, and sure, like, we do our hair a certain way because of the way society, has set the stage for what looks good. So like you could get into the weeds of that, but like for me, there's no need if like I've come to a peaceful place with it. So that's how I look at it. But I always like, and that happened so many times over the years. Like I just wouldn't deal with it. I would just go home and fucking change. And I would come back.
That's amazing.
Yep.
It does. You know what? It does make a difference. There are times when like, if I know I'm having a really important meeting and I got to be on my A game, and it's like the stakes are high, maybe I'm negotiating a contract, or I will deliberately decide I want to wear something that's going to make me feel strong and powerful and confident. Yeah. And it totally makes a difference than if I just grab something on the go. It depends on like how, it's so interesting that you say that, and to just not be ashamed about it, just own it, Yeah. Because it's true. The way that you dress and how you do your hair, it is an expression of you. And it is, that's cool. So do it for you.
Do it for you. Have fun with it. And like, that's it. We can stop there. You know, we don't have to worry about getting into the judgment of like meeting someone else's standards or.
Yeah. Am I being vain?
Yeah. So yeah, I love, she was also rebellious. She was, the black sheep in her family. She grew up in Australia and ran away at 16. Just really didn't feel like she connected with her family that well. Her aunt, who also was a black sheep in the family, they kind of had like a kindred spirit. She gave her what in today's standards would be $17,000 to go build a life she wanted to do.
Wow.
So
Very
she
cool.
moved to London and she went to journalism school. Well, actually, before she even left Australia, she went to nursing school. So then she comes over to London and goes to journalism school, and she gets assigned to this up and coming. People are talking about this man in Germany who's rising to power, Adolf Hitler. So she's like covering his journey, and she starts to see the anti-Semitics of this man as he rises to power, and it pisses her off, and she's fiery. Around that time, she's early 20s. She's partying a lot. She's kind of a life of the party girl, right? Which to me, again, makes her that much more badass that she can be both these feminine, like girly girl, and even these things, you know, these stereotypes of this type of woman can't do that role. They need to stay safe in their dress in the home. So that's I love the contrast of her. So yeah, she's in that phase of her life and things are heating up. She meets an incredible Frenchman, Henri. They get married. They have a really cute when two people meet. So he's a wealthy French industrialist, and so he's got means. And instead of them, you know, finding a place to run off and get out of it, she wants to stay and use their resources and their network to help, because she's so disgusted at the treatment of people around her. And so she convinces her husband to buy a truck or a van, and they converted it into basically an ambulance, because she's a nurse, right? So she immediately leans into a strength that she has already to help with the current situation at hand. And of course, you look at her career, and she, you know, becomes one of the most decorated spies. She jumps out of planes. She fights with her bare hands. Wow. One of her stories, she rode 400 miles on a bicycle because they needed a radio to get supplies dropped. Round trip. So if you watch that movie about her, that really like spotlights that.
Wow.
This beautiful woman, probably wearing a freaking dress, 400 miles to go get a radio, while the team of resistance, you know, her fellow team members, men, are waiting for her return. So
she did it all on her own.
Yes, she did. And she got stopped by, you know, the German police. She's beautiful. She looks like a housewife riding her bike. She gets by.
Did she speak German?
I believe she was very skilled in language and spoke several languages. So I'm sure she spoke German. So yeah, so it's like, if you back up to that, like, let's get a van and I can be a nurse. And what she did was, it was all about safety. Like that's again, the theme of this is safety, right? Like she kept so many people safe. And like, from my perspective now, and having so much interest in the word safety, you cannot do that unless you are safe within yourself, especially in a wartime. How can you think quickly on your feet? And there's so many instances where she made the exact right instinctive call, or she would have died. Like, I'm telling you, like thousands of times this woman almost died, but she like knew, like, this is what I need to say. This is how I need to show up. This is how I need to act. Just right there. You cannot do that if you do not feel safe in your body, if you do not feel safe with yourself. So she became known. She had $5 million franc reward on her head if they could catch her. She became known as the White Mouse to Nazi Germany because they couldn't catch her. She would just slip. They'd get her right there and she would like slip out. So she became known as the White Mouse. Obviously, successfully, probably not obviously because you haven't heard the story, but she had just case after case where she moved up in rank and just kept instinctively making the right calls to keep herself safe and thousands of others.
I think that's what's incredible, what I'm hearing about her, but also something that I see like a lot of parallels with some of the other women that we've talked about on the podcast. Like I love Harriet Tubman for very similar reasons.
Yeah.
Because she didn't just save herself. She decided to take the risk and go back and save hundreds of others. And she, like you were talking a lot about how great Nancy was with her intuition. She was so connected to that like inner wisdom and discernment that she had. How she had fine-tuned that, I would love to know. Like that's my question. Like what was it that she did that cultivated that? Or was it just innate within her? Or did her parents raise her a certain way that she just knew, Right. I'd love to tap into that.
She does have an autobiography. I have not read it yet, but I'm going to. I didn't realize it until I was kind of putting my notes together.
I'll have to check that out, because same with Harriet Tubman, like she instinctively knew exactly where to go. And she was very spiritual about it. And I just think like to be able to go back multiple times and never get caught and save lots, it's not just yourself that's trying to escape. Like that's incredible trust in yourself. Incredible trust.
Yeah. What is that person to be able to do that? Mm-hmm. Like with seemingly just such quick knowing and ease, like what does that person's body feel like?
Ooh,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
What does their body feel like? What is their internal dialogue like? We need that formula. Yeah. You know what I mean? Something you said about Harriet Tubman, like definitely strong parallels there. A takeaway I reminds me of when you mentioned like here's two, like they obviously had this similar wiring to be able to do this, right? This quick instinctual survival.
And a sense that they wanted to help other people. It wasn't just about them.
So one of my takeaways that I walking into right now, a strong sense of purpose, fuels accomplishing the unthinkable. So I want to read my notes just so that, because I took time to really like think this out. So I am going to look down and read. When our purpose extends beyond our own needs and serves a greater good, it's more powerful. The larger purpose sustains us. It ignites bravery in a way that overcomes the fear. So the bravery is stronger than the fear. I cannot imagine that those two women had no fear in their body. So then how, right? Then how were you able to like carry the fear and still make good decisions, carry the fear and still feel safe enough to have a clear head? To me, it's like, then it's bigger than just you. Like to reach that level of bravery is like a call to a greater purpose, right? You know what I mean? So that's really what, because I was thinking the same exact way you are. Like, what is it that allows a woman or anyone to like on the spot without question be able to just execute flawlessly? And that's kind of where I landed with that. Like, it's just the bravery, because of the call to the purpose, is much, much greater than the fear. If you think about like survival, right? Like we have to be, if you're surviving, like you're safe. Like, so our survival, like this is a theory I have and hopefully I don't butcher it, But it's like in those moments, right? So they have this call to this greater purpose that's igniting bravery that's greater than fear. And so I almost wonder if our bodies know in order to keep us alive, that safety has to be just rooted and felt, or your brain will not think clearly. It's like, I always wonder if in an emergency situation or, the freaking end times or the apocalypse, like you always wonder, right? Like, how long would I stick around? Because you see those scenes in those movies where the ones that go quick, they make the bad quick call. It's that like freeze, flight.
Yeah. Fight, for flight, freeze, and fawn.
Yeah. And you're like,
Yeah.
Nicole, I've had a couple moments that I'm like, I hate saying them out loud because I'm like, how do I overcome this? An example last week where I think it would be characterized as flight, but a quick one is like a couple weeks ago, we were sitting on our porch, super chill, Sunday, the temp's perfect. Our dogs have been trained to sit on the porch and not run off. And we live in like a city, right? So cars drive by, bicycles, people. You've heard my dog, right? So he's always like yapping at anything that moves. And so for us to be there and like we can trust that they won't sprint off, it was like an accomplishment. Well, we thought we could trust them. So a pit bull is in the distance, and my dachshund sprints off, barking to go attack a freaking pit bull. Now, you don't have to put this in your podcast because it's pretty dark, but like in December, my grandma was killed by a pit bull. So I have like pit bull PTSD. I'm seeing my dog, who I freaking love, sprint after a pit bull. And I'm like, so my mind is like, this means death. I don't remember. I broke a glass. I was having a glass of wine with Cody, my husband at the time. I broke a glass. I sprinted off. And then when I get up to the dogs, I fell and like scraped myself really badly. I mean, I don't know if I really helped the situation that much because of my freaking panic. Like, eventually it all ended up fine. The pit bull was not very aggressive. I mean, it was kind of like, what the hell, little dog? Like, you're just in my bubble. But like that takeaway, I was like shook for days, purely down to what we're talking about here. Like, I don't want to react. I want to be strong in those moments, So it's like, what is that? How do we get there? Like, I'm cultivating it in the workplace. I've learned to cultivate it in relationships, even with new people I meet. So like, is it the same wires that just need to be rooted to like be able to, respond in emergency situations? I don't know. Yeah, it really terrified me that's how I reacted. And that was just like a dog running after a dog.
How would you have wanted to react in that situation?
That is a really great question. And I actually did think about that. I'm a runner. So I think using a strength, right? Leaning into a strength, like I am a strong runner. So I think I still would have ran, but I didn't have a clear head. So I think maybe there's a moment before, these women took action of like a clearing of the head and like a focus on, okay, well, this situation's happening. This is what we're going to do. Yeah, I think just taking literally 2 seconds to just like before taking action is probably what I would have done, because I just let my body react and it's like my head wasn't there.
I think that is so insightful, Nicole. So you still would have ran, but before you ran, you would have taken a little bit of time first to see exactly where you needed to run to and how you were going to run.
I have wrist mace spray that I always have on my wrist when I go out for runs, and it's truly mostly for dogs than it is worried about people because I live in a busy place. It was right inside. I'm pointing to my front door where my porch is, and I have a key thing that hangs there. I have like 3 mace sprays hanging. If I would have taken that second, I would have reached in the house. I would have grabbed the mace because the mace isn't going to kill the pit bull. You know, if he's dangerous, it can at least like, you know what I mean? Like that, honestly, that's what I would have done. It's not going to kill the dog. Like I probably would have liked to have thought that way. And maybe that's controversial because it's still kind of considered a weapon. But like I'm a small human. Like if it's a vicious animal, like I also need to be able to protect myself.
I think what you said is so brilliant. It reminds me of, Lionel Messi is this very famous soccer player. Okay. He's probably one of the most world-renowned soccer players. And the thing about Lionel Messi is he has terrible anxiety. So like before he'd go onto a game, he would be throwing up. And it was actually a joke. People would joke about it. Like, we can't entrust Lionel Messi to be the captain of this team because he can't even hold he just keeps throwing up before he's a mess before the game. I don't know if it was like one of his coaches that helped him figure out a way for him to deal with that. But basically what they did is, or what he decided to do, and I don't know who influenced him or what, but what he decided to do was every time the game started, he was just going to walk on the field. He wasn't going to engage with his teammates. He wasn't going to engage with the other team. And for the first 5 minutes of the game, he just watched everything. And like, he is famously known for being like, he walks most of the game. He doesn't run very much at all. And by doing that, he's like getting himself centered. And so what you said just aligns perfectly with that. It's like, you're in the game, but you're just taking that time and space to settle yourself and to see the field and let the other people kind of, because that's what happens is it would draw out people from his opponents in a certain way when he would just walk, right? Kind of like disorient them a little bit. And I think that's so true. It just, when you said that, it made me think of that. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's just taking the time, giving ourselves the time and space to know ourselves. And so it kind of goes back to this, like, sitting outside by ourselves doing nothing, just doing nothing.
What a full circle conversation here. That's such a great point. Like it's do nothing, even if it's different increments of time, but that do nothing is first. It's like, don't just do nothing. Don't think about it. Just like get comfortable with what your body's feeling. Get safe and centered in your body.
Yes. And I think I think about it and I'm not great at this. I'm learning how to do it because I never learned safety as a kid. Are you kidding? I was not in a safe situation. And so I feel like sometimes I'm 5 years old and I'm having to learn it all over again, Nicole, just being real. Mm-hmm. But I think like what I love about it is like the more that you just sit with what your bodily sensations are, you start to notice what is safe for you and what is not, and when's danger and when's not danger. And the better you get at that, I think, the better you'll be able to make decisions quickly, And
I think you can start simple, rather than danger, because danger sounds, oh God, that sounds
Pitbull.
Yeah, right? Pitbull. Like, how about just like what feels good to you and what doesn't?
And pay attention to how you feel, not what you think.
Yes.
How do you physically feel?
Yeah, because our brain will, like, if we start there, spin, there's a spin, there's the what ifs, there's the fear. And if you simply start in the body with just stillness and a simple question, and then like, let the body tell you, let the feeling in the body tell you. And it's like, I think that's instincts, right? Like, I think that's how you tap into your instincts.
So true. I just immediately thought of my daughter who's 9, and I don't remember how it came up, but I was asking her, like, how do you feel when mommy gives you a hug? And she said, I feel safe. And when she said that, I was like, oh my gosh, it made me think, like, how can I give that to myself? You know, how can I like give my own body a hug so I can feel safe? You know, I just thought that was so wise on her part, like to be like, you know, she just knew right away. She's like, oh, I feel safe. She didn't say I feel loved. She said, I feel safe. And I think sometimes safety is like the foundation of love.
I've just had this word become such a big thing because of seeing how much better you make it for other people when you have it. It's the whole, like, you know, you can't love others until you love yourself. You can't love yourself as sweetly if you don't feel safe. You can still love yourself and not have that, but it's much sweeter from a safe place. And really, what isn't? Like, what isn't better when you feel safe? Your mind is clear, you're more creative, you're relaxed, right? Because with safety, like, fear is, I mean, I don't think fear really ever goes, like, especially if you're a growth person. Like, you can't get rid of fear. But if you have such a strong safety system, it's like, okay, yeah, like,
you know, you're going to be okay no matter what, because you trust yourself.
And I think it can start to be autopilot. You know, I think about Nancy Wake and Harriet Tubman, like, the just constant, like, making the right call in unpredictable, dangerous, life-threatening situations, just boom, boom, boom. It's like, was that just like, did it become something that just unconsciously rooted for them? And like, you know what I mean? Like, how?
Yeah, you know what's, I love this, because I think every time Nancy Wake reacted and trusted her intuition, she is teaching herself. She is like every single time practicing it. So she's like, oh, I learned. You're building it. So every time you like feel afraid, like she did, she was in fearful situations. She was afraid. She trusted her instincts. Boom. She's learning. She's like fueling that internal discernment over time. And so like maybe, and same with Harriet Tubman, it's like, maybe it's like putting yourself in those fearful situations that are scary and knowing they're going to be scary and saying, you know what, I'm going to put myself in this scary situation and I'm going to trust my instincts and see what happens. And then I'm going to learn. And then I'm going to do it again. And then I'm going to do it again. And then I'm going to do it again. And every time I do it, it's going to get better and better and better. And, you know, maybe in some ways, Nancy Wake got real lucky that she never like, got injured, or because I think as I've tried to do that, and I think as other people too, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to fall down. You're not going to get it right every single time. There's going to be times when you're going to really get it wrong.
That's a really great point in this, because it's really easy to read her story and just be like, this woman was freaking flawless. Like, she never made a bad call. To be honest, like, they're not, from what I've seen, that's not what's shared, right? But I guarantee you there's no way in hell that like this situation played out 5 years of her life and there weren't extreme blunders. So that's a really good point. So I don't want to leave that. But the one thing you made me think of when you were saying, you know, like they're putting themselves in these situations time and time again. I had the thought of like the credibility and trust. Like, you give yourself the credibility and you gain more trust in yourself with each stacking one. You know what I mean? It's like, imagine how much confidence in your own instincts and how much you trust yourself after a series of all of those trials that you proved yourself. So it's like stacking those, like, and we could do that in our daily lives, right? I'm super spiritual, and manifesting is a big word in the spiritual realm. And one of the formulas of manifesting is looking for the evidence that you already have it, you know? So, but So it's reversing the lack state of mind is really what it's doing. So you, in this case, I have bad survival instincts, right? Like if I think that because I saw the evidence of the pit bull freaking situation, and then I could start to stack all the evidence that, yep, that's true. Well, okay, we don't want that. I'd rather live on the other side of that. So
Yeah.
how about I start stacking the evidence that I am strong at that? And you can start simple. Like I didn't slice my thumb when I was dicing onions the other day. Like a lot of people, my husband being one of them, is always freaking cutting himself when he's chopping up veggies. I never do. And that's actually true. I don't. So like you start to stack those evidences on top of each other. And then it's just like, that's it. That's you. That's how you move and groove, like without even trying. So, could be something there.
I love that so much. It reminds me of like, I spoke in London this June, and I remember when I was waiting to hear back if I had submitted my application, and it was a real long shot. I didn't think I was, I was like, this is long, but I remember I bought a puzzle that was like a puzzle of London. And I remember I was like, I'm going to just do this puzzle. I'm going to put myself in the space that I'm there, like as if I'm,
That's so cool.
And it was so fun. I did that puzzle, and I was just, for me, that was manifesting. I was like, I'm doing this puzzle because I know that I'm going to end up, if I think about it, if I put myself there, even, with my little pieces. And it was like a really cool example. I was like, this is a small thing, but I believe that. I believe when you actually, if there's something that you want, if you actually take small steps, as simple as that, to just envision that for yourself, do something small, it will happen.
Yeah. And I love that example because it's just like light. You're doing a puzzle. Like it's really creative.
It's not that deep.
It's not that deep, and it's light and feels good, and it's playful,
Yeah.
So I love like wrapping that energy around something we want so badly.
Yeah. So cool. Well, I love so many things you shared, but I think you're a poet, Nicole. If you don't write poetry, you should, because you said something that was just so beautiful. You can't love yourself as sweetly if you don't feel safe. I just want to put that on my wall. It's so beautiful. You can't love yourself as sweetly if you don't feel safe.
You can't love your daughter as sweetly if you don't feel safe, right? So, good. I'm sorry, you were saying something else.
No, but you're absolutely right. Like my tendency to be a workaholic, no questions, impacted my relationships, and I think about that and I look back and I think, man, I'm going to do it differently from now on. I don't want to have that. Yeah. Anyway, but
there's a statement, speaking of poetry. I mean, I appreciate that. I will, I have never thought myself to be,
you are a poet, my friend.
A wordsmith. I aspire to be, which is why I left the agency to find my voice. That means a lot. But something I said off the cuff at the retreat was grow from peace, not pressure. And what is peace? Peace is safety. Like you can't be at peace and not feel safe. Like those two are like, they're twins, or at least cousins,
intertwined.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So true.
So if you are in a state of pressure, anxiety, then in your body your body's calling for safety. And it's actually, I find it easier to cultivate than people might think. I listened to a podcast a while ago with a monk, and he said that he was sharing people's visits to I want to say Montessori's. Is that right? That's the name. That's a school.
Oh yeah. The monastery. The monastery. Yeah.
People check themselves in there. And a lot of times, I don't think they know exactly what they're looking for or what they're going to get out of it. It's just like, I need to strip myself because the world is chaos, right? To me, I think They go there, a sense of peace and safety. But he made a point that it was really about freedom. We are often in environments where if you really check in with your body, there's not a sense of freedom in you. So like you think going to work, people, clock in for 8 hours. And I think for the majority, it's like you're at work because you have to be. So you're not free. But really what people walk away with is the realization that like freedom is created in the body. So any situation you put yourself in, this is your world, this body that we get to live in, no matter what the environment is. Like, this is your universe. And if you prefer to live in a free one, in a safe one, then you can create it. Like, it's not external that sets that. It's you tying external and then like applying it to you. So I've hopefully explained that well enough. I think I kind of butchered it, but when I heard it, I was driving to work and I was like a couple weeks into this job. And one of my greatest fears was loss of freedom. I was a self-employed, as you know. There is freedom with that. Of course, we're both workaholics, but there still, as someone who has taken personality test after personality test that tells me I don't like to be controlled. Like, I'm an Enneagram 8. Are you an 8?
I'm a 7.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm a 7 through and through. Sometimes I have a wing 8. Sometimes my wing 8 comes out, and then sometimes my wing 6. But I'm a 7 with a wing 8 sometimes.
Okay.
But
yeah, I'm 8 with wing 7.
That doesn't surprise me.
I know, right? Everyone. So I was at a dinner party last week, and the girl guessed. I was like, "Oh my gosh, do I just like radiate this?" Like,
so yeah. What's your Myers-Briggs?
I've actually never taken that one.
Oh, have you done the disc?
Yes, and it was whatever one is like an 8.
The D, probably the D.
I was a D.
Yeah. How funny.
So
That's
yeah,
so
like
cool.
control. Yeah, so like control for me in all these tests is like, oh, you don't like to be controlled. So I leave my self-employed free job, my free situation, and I sign up to, manufacturing. Start time 6:30 a.m. till 4 p.m. It's like clock in, clock. 2 years ago, there's no fucking way I could have done that. Because I wasn't where I am in my growth journey. Like I would just like sit in there and feel trapped. And so it was cool to hear that message, 2 weeks in, and like, it reset me. Like, I swear for life, where I'm just like, no matter where I am at, I get to decide if I'm free in my body. Again, like going back to feeling in your body. I get to decide if I want to feel free. Doesn't matter what's going on around me.
It's so empowering and so liberating to think that way. When you take ownership and responsibility over it in that way, you're less of a victim of whatever circumstance you're in. And you're saying, I'm going to choose, and I have the ability to create that for myself. It's really empowering.
And it gives you the freedom. Like, you can still not like it. But you still have freedom rooted in you. And you can still say, like, this place sucks. Like, I don't want to be here. But you're still internally free and safe, So it's like, it's not living in delusion. It's just taking ownership of our own little universe we call, our body. So,
Nicole, I just want to talk to you all day. It's so fun.
Pretty
This is pretty awesome.
We just really like the best conversations are like the what I mean?
And I knew that was going to be that when I was planning for this interview. I was like, this is going to be just so organic and full of juicy wisdom, because I know you, and you have this very you just have such deep wisdom. And I personally believe that people like you and I and many others who've gone through childhood trauma, you do have a deep discernment and almost like this truth ability to see things for what they are, that is a gift that comes like a byproduct of that experience. It's just like you can snuff it out. Like you see the truth, the heart of things, and that deep empathy that you have when you go through those kinds of experiences really helps you, I think, be so intuitive. So I see that in you. I think it's really a beautiful, beautiful quality about you.
That's what makes for such an incredible recipe for conversation between us. It's like, it's so cherished too when you find those people. Like I love my husband. He's a rad dude. He's super fun. He's got big curly hair. He's so smart. He's a bit nerdy, but you know, like without going through a similar experience, like type of childhood, these types of questions or these types of conversations, I think only happen when you've got that, because it's a lens, right? It's a lens that you look through life, that it's no fault to anyone else. I have incredible conversations with him and a lot of my friends. That is a lens that you now like, that you wear. And so things,
I think you see things a little bit more deeply.
Yeah, definitely deeply.
Yeah. And you think about things more deeply. Same. My husband, you know, he grew up in a very different circumstance. Yeah. I swear, are we twins or what? I just need to dye my hair blonde and move to Indiana, and then I'll be.
Or, you know, vice versa, because you're arguably in a cooler. I always want to say Virginia, but I know it's wrong.
No, yeah, that's right. I'm in Virginia.
Oh,
yeah, shoot. I live like 20 minutes from DC. You got it. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I think that maybe we should come to you. Also, great winery.
Yeah, there's a lot of good wineries in Virginia for sure. I don't drink wine, but I've heard they're amazing. Like especially Central Virginia has some great wineries in there, the Blue Ridge Mountains, and
So it's actually on our list at some point. What we have
when you come, you can come stay.
Well, yeah, obviously. So yeah, maybe I'll dye my hair brown and maybe I'm just saying, like we can chat through that and see where we land. But
sounds so great. I'm just like, I'm thankful to Mark Schaefer for bringing us together. You know, like it's just so. I find like the older I get, the more I realize how special the people, your networks are. You know, like. Because you just never know who's going to connect you to who and how and what. And so, yeah, I'm grateful that, you know, that all kind of, the universe all kind of, you know, the way that all aligned, you know, it's very serendipitous.
Yeah. And I'm sure you can do this too. You look back at like things, you know, experiences like that, or like for me, another one is studying abroad when I was in my 20s. I went to Australia and it's like, they're such big investments, and then you walk away. And of course the experience was great, but the people you meet where you're like, damn, like that's what I spent money on. 'Cause that was the best part of that. The retreat was great, but like this relationship is greater.
Totally. I feel the same way. That was what was really cool about that. It's like, I went on this hike this last weekend. We went to Shenandoah, me and a couple friends, and we were going to hike this 9-mile hike, Nicole, and it was so much fun. We had such a great, like literally we were talking the whole time. Like you really, if you want to get to know someone, you go on a hike with them, and not just like a 2-mile hike, like an all-day hike, and then get lost. And then you get to see, you know, how it really goes, you know? So we like a 9-mile hike and we made a wrong turn and ended up going down a horse trail that we weren't supposed to go down. And then the minute we realized it, we're like, oh, well, we're just going to have to turn around and go back. And we just like hightailed it back. And it was just like this similar thing. Like we had such a fun time, and it was the people. It's because we were together and we were having such a great time. And yeah, it sucked. Like I remember walking up that horse trail after going down it, and it was hard. And I was like, this sucks, but I'd do it again.
So how long did that take? 15 miles.
We started hiking at 8:30.
6 hours?
8:30. We didn't get back until 6.
Oh my gosh.
And it wasn't incredible. Like a flat hike. It was like straight up and like stair steps, like natural steps. Okay. And then down. So I think I took like 5 years off the life of my knees. I think I'm going to get a knee replacement 5 years earlier because of that height. But anyway.
But it was worth it.
It was totally worth it. Well, for my last question for you, Nicole, and then I'm going to let you go because I can't hijack.
You got pumpkin bread to eat, sister.
I got to go eat my pumpkin bread. And I'm sure you've got to walk your dog.
I've got to work out because I took 2 days off, and I am someone who's pretty dedicated to movement, so I'm going to do that.
Oh, good.
Yes.
You do that. What's your final parting words, like to any woman who is watching this? What's one word of advice that you would give to them?
This is loaded, Nicole. I might take a couple tries at this, okay?
Totally fine.
So,
yep.
I know it's about safety.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So my hope for everyone that hears this is that they learn to root safety within them so that everything around them becomes better, sweeter, more enjoyable. I think to get to the place of safety is an acceptance, meeting ourselves where we're at and really feeling into our bodies. See, I'm working this out. So basically I'm trying to provide a formula so that your listeners can walk away with. And, we actually worked this out together, you and I, the stillness and just allowing of the body and its feeling, like giving no judgment, right? It's just creating that safe space. That's what you're doing, right? So I'm working this out. And this is rough draft though, Nicole. This is why I keep rocking back and forth because I'm like, this is a big one.
It's already been beautiful. I'm telling you, it's been gorgeous.
It's the $1 million question, right? How do you create rooted safety in your body so that you can show up as a safe space for everyone around you? And that's strangers too, right? Like what more beauty could happen around us if we were a safe space to anyone in our company? Like what connections could we be having that we're not having, that we wouldn't have in a parallel universe where we weren't safe in our bodies? Those misconnections that happen, the opportunity cost to our relationships in our lives when we're not safe in our bodies. What I hope for everyone, really everyone, like if I can just blanket across the world, I would say safety in our bodies I would love to test the hypothesis to see if that would just save like world peace, right? But for people listening, leaving them with one thing is from what I've learned, and at this point, people know a lot about my life through this podcast. What I've learned, the wisdom I can leave with people is the more you cultivate that safety in your body, the better everything around you becomes. And I think the dialogue and the points that you and I have gotten to from that topic probably is enough to help someone dial in their own formula.
Yeah. Bravo.
It's different. It's different for everyone.
Yeah, that's so beautiful.
Bravo to you too. You are a natural, and you're like, this is a space you're meant to be in. So
thank you. That means a lot. I love it.
I drive 2 hours a day. I'm going to have Hello Moxie. Just like,
oh, that means so much to me, Nicole. Right. I can't tell you, like, the imposter syndrome and just all of the, who do you think you are kind of stuff. But you know what? I just have to keep going back to, I'm doing it because I love it. I just love it so much, and I want to do stuff that I love. I'm at a point in my life where most of my life I've been just doing stuff that other people told me to do. And I want to do what I want to do. And I'm not going to feel guilty about it. So this is that. Whether people listen or not.
And I cannot wait to see like what that outfit looks like on you, because like it's so deserved. you know, like you're so loving, like you radiate just like love and kindness. And, you know, knowing your history and just like pushing through all, you know, the pressure that you've put on yourself and like, you know, like that's heavy shit. Like pushing through extreme pressure, that's like chains on our body, you know, especially stacked. Yeah, it's chains. It's living in chains. And like for someone so loving and kind, it's like I just like imagine you just like breaking out of those and stepping into like the most boldest like boss bitch outfit, whatever dress you are like, that dress is like me feeling like $1,000,000. Like I just picture you like walking through the rest of your life in that dress because you're like, I'm done with these, you know what I mean? But like those, I think we, you know, we realized in the top of this conversation, like those chains from the trauma led us to the wisdom. So
exactly,
you know, like you can part ways with those chains with like a sense of gratitude now.
Yes, exactly. That is what I think that is so important when you've gone through what we've gone through, is to learn what you can from it. You got to learn from it and you got to feel it. You've got to feel the pain of it all. You got to feel the anger. You've got to feel the grief, the loss. You have to feel those things and give yourself space to breathe in those places and let yourself feel it. But then just say thank you because I'm learning so much. But anyway,
for me, it was like the realization, you know, when you can feel it, right? Going back to the feeling, like you can feel it in your body when you've like turned a corner with it. Like you're not fighting it, at least like a fractional amount, you know, like you can feel when you're like, okay, something like we've figured out the relationship between us in a healthy way. Like you have a relationship with the chains.
Yeah.
Where it's like a teenager fighting their mom, you know, they reach their 20s and 30s and they're like, I'm not going to fight you anymore. I'm not going to fight you anymore. Like, you're part of me. You're part of my family. You're part of my heritage. I'll
you made
give
me. You made me who I am.
You taught me lessons. You taught me wisdom. Like, you showed me how to, like, you created this authenticity recipe that is me. So that's been a fun way for me to spin it.
Yeah. I'll say one more thing and then I promise I'll let you go. I think for me, like what I've noticed, and I'm still in it, still trying to process through a lot of stuff. One of the things I've noticed is I say no more than I ever have before. And I'm okay with it. Like I say no more and I'll ask for what I want or what I need, you know, in ways that I never have before. And that's something that I'm like, to me, I'm like, that's an indication that I'm growing, right? I'm saying no and I ask for what I need and even what I want.
And you feel safe to say no.
Yes.
Like if hearing the way that your tone when you were saying that, it's like, wow, like, yeah, she's like not struggling to say no.
Yep.
And I think but you had to struggle and sit, like, I'm sure saying no at first was a struggle, right? So,
oh yeah. Even still, sometimes it is, if I'm being honest. Like there's still times where after I say the no, I feel uncomfortable. But going into it, I say to myself, this is going to feel uncomfortable for you. You're not going to feel comfortable because for 42 years or whatever, it's never been comfortable for you to say no. So it's not going to feel comfortable when you're learning to do something new for a little while until you get, practice it and get better at it, So, yeah.
That is like, when you said it just like that, I'm like, oh, I think we might have talked about this. Like when you're in an insecure spot, like talking to yourself like you would your daughter or your best friend.
Yeah.
Like that's what it reminded me of, like the way you were saying that. It's just like, that just shows so much health in your relationship with yourself, if that's how you're talking to yourself, So yeah, I came a long way with that, because like, as someone who like you, who like puts a lot of pressure on yourself, like that pressure used to be a very bitchy ass dialogue in my head. Like, God, you're not helping. Like a rude, mean dialogue.
It's like you're swimming up a river. It's like you're swimming up a river fighting a current. That's what, at least for me, that's what it's felt like.
Yeah.
But you can't let yourself go downstream. You just can't let go. That's a wrap for today's episode of Hello Moxie. I hope you felt that unbreakable thread connecting you to the women of the past, to the trailblazing pioneers of today. Their stories of audacity, resilience, and courage are a powerful reminder of what's possible for you when you choose to live with Moxie.